The distress signal came through every quantum communication channel in the galaxy at the same time. It was desperate, broken, and terrified. The Deltharian species was dying, and they were begging anyone who would listen to help them. Commander Taemin sat in his command chair aboard the Harbinger, watching the translated message play on the main screen. The alien speaking was small, with blue skin and large eyes that were filled with tears. Behind them, buildings burned, and explosions lit up the night sky. Please, anyone who receives this message, we need help. The Krathian Dominion has invaded our world. They are killing us, enslaving our children, taking everything we have. We have tried to fight, but we are not warriors. We are farmers, artists, teachers. Please help us. We are dying. The message ended, and the bridge fell silent. Taemin looked around at his crew. They all wore the black and red uniforms of the Earth Defense Force Worldbreaker Division. These were not ordinary soldiers. These were humanity's most dangerous warriors, the ones other species whispered about in fear. Communications. Has anyone answered their call? Taemin asked. Yuna, his communications officer, shook her head. Her face was sad. No, sir. The signal has reached 47 different civilizations. All of them have acknowledged it. None of them are sending help. Why not? Asked Dong Wook from his engineering station. He was young but brilliant, the man who had designed some of their most powerful weapons. Because they are afraid, said Haewon, the tactical officer. She was a former Special Forces operative who had seen more combat than most people could imagine. The Krathian Dominion has 300 warships in orbit around that planet. They have 200,000 soldiers on the ground. No one wants to fight them. I may be round-the-moted. Taemin stood up from his chair and walked to the viewing screen. He stared at the frozen image of the Deltharian who had sent the message. He thought about Earth, about humanity's own history of being conquered and enslaved by others. He thought about how no one had helped them either, how they had to fight and claw their way to freedom. How long until the Deltharians are completely conquered? He asked. Haewon checked her data. Intelligence says 72 hours at most. The Krathians are efficient. They will kill anyone who resists and enslave the rest. And how far away are we? 48 hours by quantum jump. Taemin turned to face his crew. Every eye was on him. They knew what he was thinking, because they were thinking the same thing. Humans did not abandon people who needed help. That was not who they were. Send a message to the Deltharian government. Tell them Earth is coming. Tell them to hold on. Yuna smiled and immediately began working on her console. But before she could send the message, another transmission came through. This one was from the Galactic Council, the organization that supposedly governed all civilized species in the galaxy. An alien face appeared on the screen. It looked like a tall bird with golden feathers and cold, intelligent eyes. Commander Taemin, we are aware of the Deltharian situation. We understand that humans have certain aggressive tendencies. We are ordering you not to intervene. The Krathian Dominion is too powerful. Any interference will result in sanctions against Earth. Taemin stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he smiled. But it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator. With respect, Council member. We do not answer to you. We answer to those who need us. Taemin out. He cut the transmission before the alien could respond. The bridge crew erupted in cheers and shouts of approval. This was why they served on Worldbreaker ships. This was why they had joined the most feared military division in human history. Yuna, send that message to the Deltharians. Then contact the Hammer and the Vengeance. Tell them we are going to war. The Hammer and the Vengeance were the other two Worldbreaker-class ships in their battle group. Each one was 2 kilometers long, covered in weapons, and crewed by 15,000 of humanity's finest soldiers. Together, the 3 ships represented more firepower than most small nations could dream of. Sang Woo, the wing commander of their fighter squadrons, stepped onto the bridge. He was young and cocky, with more than 200 confirmed kills in space combat. I heard we are going to kick some Krathian ass. My pilots are ready. Good, said Taemin. Because we are going up against 300 enemy warships, with only 3 ships of our own, Sangwoo laughed. Sounds fair to me. Should we bring more ships to make it even for them? Even Hae-won smiled at that. This was the attitude that made humans terrifying to other species. They did not see impossible odds. They saw a challenge. All hands, prepare for quantum jump, Taemin announced over the ship-wide communications. We are going to the Delthara system. We are going to war. And we are going to show the galaxy why they fear the Worldbreakers. The Harbinger's engines began to charge, creating a low hum that vibrated through the entire ship. Across the vessel, 45,000 men and women prepared for battle. Marines checked their weapons, fighter pilots climbed into their cockpits, engineers armed the ship's devastating weapon systems. In the medical bay, Hyun-woo prepared for the casualties he knew would come. He was the chief medical officer, a man who had saved thousands of lives, but had also seen thousands die. He hated war, but he understood why it was sometimes necessary. The 3 Worldbreaker ships, aligned in formation, their massive hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. Then, in a flash of blue light, they disappeared into quantum space, jumping across hundreds of light years in an instant. Behind them, the galaxy watched and waited. Some hoped the humans would succeed. Others hoped they would fail and be destroyed, removing Earth's threat forever. But everyone agreed on one thing. The Krathian Dominion was about to learn what happened when you made humanity angry. The message from Taemin reached the Deltharian homeworld just as another city fell to the Krathian invaders. When the Deltharian Prime Minister saw it, she began to cry. Not from fear this time, but from hope. The message was simple and clear. Hold on. The Worldbreakers are coming. Thanks for watching. The 3 human ships emerged from quantum space at the edge of the Delthara system. The sight that greeted them would have made any normal military force turn around and flee. 300 Krathian warships filled the space around the planet, each one bristling with weapons and armor. They were ugly ships, built for war and nothing else. On the bridge of the Harbinger, Taemin studied the enemy fleet with calm eyes. He had seen worse odds before. Not much worse, but worse. They have detected us, reported Yuna. The Krathian fleet commander is hailing us. Put him on screen. A massive alien appeared on the view screen. The Krathian was at least 8 feet tall, covered in thick gray scales, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red. He wore heavy armor decorated with the bones of enemies he had killed. This was Vornok, a warlord known for destroying entire civilizations. So the humans have come, Vornok said, his voice deep and threatening. 3 ships against my entire fleet. Your species is even more stupid than I thought. Turn back now, primates, or I will add your bones to my collection. Taemin leaned forward in his chair. You should not have attacked innocents. Now you will pay the price. Vornok laughed, a horrible sound like rocks grinding together. Big words from someone about to die. Attack them. Destroy those 3 ships. Now, people. The transmission cut off. Immediately, the Krathian fleet began to move. Dozens of warships broke formation and headed toward the 3 human vessels, their weapons charging. Hae-won, initiate Ghost Protocol. Taemin ordered. Hae-won's fingers flew across her console. Ghost Protocol activated. Suddenly, on every Krathian sensor, the 3 human ships seemed to multiply. Where there had been 3 vessels, now there appeared to be 50. Each one looked real, moved like it was real, and registered on sensors as real. On the Krathian flagship, confusion broke out. Officers shouted at each other, trying to figure out which ships were real and which were illusions. Vornok screamed orders, demanding his fleet spread out to attack all the targets. They are taking the bait, said Hae-won with satisfaction. The Krathian fleet is breaking apart to chase our phantom ships. Good. Sang-woo, launch all fighters. Target their command ships. Yes, sir. Sang-woo ran from the bridge toward the fighter bays. Throughout the Harbinger, pilots climbed into their small, fast fighter craft. Each fighter was barely bigger than a car, armed with missiles and energy weapons. They were fragile compared to the massive Krathian warships, but they were fast and deadly in the right hands. Sang-woo dropped into the cockpit of his own fighter and sealed the canopy. Around him, 200 other fighters prepared to launch. This is Wing Commander Sang-woo, to all squadrons. Remember your training. Hit fast, hit hard, and do not let them catch you. Let's show these bastards why they should fear human pilots. The fighter bay doors opened, and the small craft shot out into space like a swarm of angry hornets. The Krathian ships immediately tried to target them, but the fighters were too fast and too agile. They wove between the massive warships, firing missiles and energy beams at critical systems. Sang-woo targeted a Krathian cruiser and fired 6 missiles in rapid succession. They streaked toward the enemy ship, dodging its defensive fire. 5 were shot down, but 1 got through. It hit the cruiser's engine section and exploded, sending the ship spinning out of control. 1 down, Sang-woo shouted. Keep hitting them. But the Krathians were not helpless. Their defensive systems came online, and they began shooting down fighters. Sang-woo watched as 3 of his pilots were hit, their ships exploding in bright flashes of light. It made him angry, but he used that anger to fight harder. On the Harbinger, Dong-wook monitored the battle from his engineering station. He was waiting for the right moment, the perfect time to unleash humanity's most terrible weapon. Commander, he said, 50 Krathian ships are now in optimal position. Requesting permission to activate Cascade Protocol. Taemin did not hesitate. Permission granted. Fire. Dong-wook pressed a series of commands. From the Harbinger's main weapon array, an invisible pulse of energy shot out. It was not a normal weapon. It was something humans had created by studying quantum mechanics and the fundamental forces of the universe. Something that other species considered impossible. The pulse reached the first Krathian ship and passed through its shields as if they did not exist. Deep inside the ship, in its reactor core, atoms began to vibrate at impossible frequencies. Then, they exploded. But that was not all. The explosion created another quantum pulse that jumped to the next nearest ship, and then the next, and the next. It was like dominoes falling, one after another, except each domino was a massive warship filled with thousands of alien soldiers. In the space of 30 seconds, 50 Krathian ships exploded from the inside out. There was no warning, no time to evacuate, no chance to survive. They simply ceased to exist, replaced by expanding clouds of debris and gas. On the Deltharian homeworld below, millions of people watched the sky in amazement. They had never seen anything like this. The humans were not fighting a battle. They were committing genocide. Vornok stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 1/6 of his fleet. Gone in seconds. What weapon is that? How did they do that? His tactical officer was pale with fear. Unknown. Commander. Our ships just exploded. Internal detonations. It should not be possible. Target those human ships with everything we have. Kill them now. The remaining Krathian fleet turned its full attention on the 3 real human ships. Thousands of missiles and energy beams filled space. The Harbinger shook as weapons fire hit its shields. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Shields at 60%, reported Haewon. They are concentrating fire on us. Evasive maneuvers, ordered Taemin. Hammer and vengeance. Focus fire on their flagship. Let us cut the head off this snake. The 3 Worldbreaker ships moved in perfect coordination, their massive forms surprisingly agile for vessels so large. They returned fire with their own weapons, and wherever their energy beams touched, Krathian ships died. The battle raged for 2 hours. The space around Delthara Prime became a graveyard of destroyed ships, floating debris, and bodies. Human fighters continued their deadly dance, though their numbers were shrinking. Sang-woo had lost half his pilots, but they had taken down 3 times that number in enemy ships. Finally, something changed. A transmission came through from the Krathian homeworld, bypassing Vornok entirely and going straight to the human ships. Human Commander, this is the Krathian High Council. We request immediate negotiations. We are prepared to discuss terms for withdrawal from Deltharon space. Taemin looked at the message with cold eyes. Around him, his bridge crew waited to see what he would do. The Krathians were asking for mercy, for a chance to negotiate and save face. Send them this message, Taemin said quietly. You should have thought of that before attacking innocents. There will be no negotiations. There will be no withdrawal. There will only be consequences. Crews. Right. He closed the channel and turned to Hae-won. Prepare for orbital assault. We are going down to the planet to finish this. The Galactic Council's emergency broadcast reached every major civilization in the galaxy. A dozen different alien species appeared on screens throughout known space, all of them looking worried and angry. The human forces must stand down immediately, declared the council speaker. 200,000 Krathian soldiers currently occupy Delthara Prime. They are using civilian populations as shields. Any ground assault will result in massive collateral damage and loss of innocent life. We forbid the humans from deploying ground forces. On the Harbinger, Taemin watched the broadcast and then turned it off. He stood in the briefing room with his senior officers and 200 Marine commanders. These were the people who would be going down to the planet's surface to fight. You all heard what the council said, Taemin told them. They forbid us from doing what needs to be done. They say we will cause too much damage, kill too many innocents. They want us to negotiate, to compromise, to let the Krathians leave with their dignity intact. He paused and looked at each face. But we are not here for the Galactic Council. We are here for the Deltharians who are dying right now, being tortured and enslaved while the Council talks about diplomacy. Lieutenant Ji-woo stepped forward. She was young, only 25. But she had already earned a reputation as one of the most fierce Marines in the Worldbreaker division. She had lost her entire family to alien raiders when she was a child. That loss had turned her into a weapon. Sir, my battalion is ready. Give us the order, and we will clear every Krathian from that planet. Taemin nodded. I know you will. All of you will. But understand this. The Council is right about one thing. This will be brutal. Many of you will die down there. Many civilians will die despite our best efforts. The galaxy will call us monsters for what we are about to do. Are you willing to pay that price? For Monsters the One. Thanks for watching. Every person in the room answered as one. Yes, sir. Then let's show them what Worldbreakers do. The plan was called Operation Hellfall, and it was designed to put 12,000 Marines on the ground in multiple locations simultaneously. They would drop from orbit in armored pods, crashing through the atmosphere at incredible speeds and landing right in the middle of enemy positions. In the Marine deployment bay, Ji-woo helped her soldiers check their equipment. Each Marine wore powered armor that enhanced their strength and speed, carried enough weapons to take on a small army, and had been trained to fight in any environment. They were humanity's best. Listen up, Ji-woo shouted to her battalion. The Krathians think they are safe down there. They think no one will risk attacking them because of the hostages. They are wrong. We are going to drop right on their heads. And we are going to show them what happens when you threaten innocent people. Some of you will not come back. That is the truth. But those who do will be able to say they saved an entire species from extinction. Now, load up. The Marines climbed into their drop pods, 1 soldier per pod. They were also the fastest way to get from orbit to ground without giving the enemy time to prepare. Ji-woo sealed herself into her own pod and ran through her equipment check one last time. Rifle. Loaded. Sidearm. Loaded. Grenades. 6. Armor. Fully powered. She was as ready as she would ever be. All Marines, this is Commander Taemin. You are the finest warriors humanity has ever produced. You are going into hell, but you will come out the other side as legends. Good hunting. Legends. The drop pods launched. 12,000 metal coffins shot out from the 3 Worldbreaker ships and fell toward the planet below. Inside each pod, a Marine sat in darkness, feeling the pod shake and rattle as it hit the atmosphere. The temperature inside rose dramatically. Outside, the pod's armor glowed red from the friction. Krathian anti-air weapons opened fire, trying to shoot down the pods. Some were hit and exploded in bright streaks across the sky. Ji-Woo listened to the communications channel and heard the death screams of Marines whose pods were destroyed. She forced herself not to think about it. There would be time to mourn later. Right now, she needed to focus on surviving the next 5 minutes. Her pod slammed into the ground in the middle of a Krathian military camp. The impact knocked the air from her lungs, but her armor absorbed most of the shock. The pod door exploded outward, and Ji-Woo burst out with her rifle raised. She was immediately surrounded by surprised Krathian soldiers. They were huge, each one twice her size, but she did not hesitate. Her rifle fired in controlled bursts, and 3 Krathians fell before they could even raise their weapons. More were coming from all directions. Around her, other pods crashed down and more Marines emerged. The camp exploded into chaos and violence. Humans and Krathians fought at close range with guns, knives, and bare hands. The Marines were smaller and weaker individually, but they fought with a ferocity that shocked their enemies. Ji-Woo emptied her rifle into a group of charging Krathians and then switched to her sidearm. A Krathian soldier grabbed her from behind with 2 of its 4 arms. She triggered her armor's electric defense system, sending 50,000 volts through the alien's body. It released her and fell, smoke rising from its scales. "Push forward," she screamed to her Marines. "Do not let them regroup." The fighting was brutal and savage. Marines took casualties, but they gave back twice what they received. The Krathians had expected to fight a defensive battle, to hide behind their hostages and force the humans to negotiate. They had not expected humans to attack with such complete disregard for their own safety. In the city of Veltara, the largest Deltharian population center, Woojin led a demolitions team through underground tunnels. The Krathians had fortified an entire district, turning it into a fortress. Woojin's orders were simple. Bring it down. His team planted seismic charges at key structural points throughout the district's foundation. These were not normal explosives. They were designed to create artificial earthquakes, to make the very ground betray the enemy. "Charges set," Woojin reported. "All civilians have been evacuated from the collapse zone. We are clear to detonate." 18. From orbit, Haewon gave the authorization. "Detonate when ready." Woojin pressed the trigger. Deep underground, the charges exploded in a precise sequence. The ground shook, buildings swayed, and then an entire city block collapsed inward. The Krathian fortress simply fell into itself, burying thousands of enemy soldiers under tons of concrete and steel. But the Krathians were not defeated yet. In the Capitol building, they had gathered 10,000 Deltharian civilians as hostages. The Krathian commander sent a message to the human forces: "Pull back, or we will execute them all." The message reached Ji-Woo's battalion. They were 3 kilometers away from the Capitol building, fighting through heavy resistance. According to her tactical display, the Krathians would begin executing hostages in 15 minutes. "We cannot make it in time," one of her sergeants said. Ji-Woo checked the map and found a route through the city's transit system. It would be dangerous, probably trapped, and definitely suicide for most forces. But they were not most forces. "We are taking the tunnels. Move out." Her battalion, now down to 200 Marines from the original 400, ran through the ruins of the city. They fought through Krathian patrols, blasted through locked doors, and pushed their bodies beyond normal human limits. Their armor's medical systems pumped them full of stimulants to keep them moving. They reached the Capitol building with 3 minutes to spare. The Krathians had positioned their hostages in the main hall, surrounded by soldiers with weapons aimed at the terrified civilians. The Krathian commander was about to give the order to fire. Then the windows exploded inward. Ji-woo and her marines came through from every direction, their weapons already firing. The Krathians tried to turn and fight, but they were too slow. In a battle that lasted 90 seconds, every Krathian soldier in that room was killed. Ji-woo stood in the middle of the hall, breathing hard, covered in blood that was not her own. Around her, Deltharian civilians stared in shock and fear. These humans had just saved them, but the violence they had witnessed was terrifying. A young Deltharian child stepped forward, looking up at Ji-woo's armored form. "Are you the Worldbreakers?" the child asked in a small voice. Ji-woo removed her helmet. Her face was scarred and hard, but her eyes were kind. "Yes," she said, "and you are safe now." But even as she said it, alarms began blaring on her helmet display. New contacts were appearing in orbit. Lots of them. The Krathian Dominion had sent reinforcements. 1,200 warships were entering the system. The real battle was about to begin. The message from Earth arrived 48 hours after the Krathian reinforcements were detected. When it came through, every human in the system stopped what they were doing to watch. On the main screen of the Harbinger's bridge, a new face appeared. It was an older man, perhaps 60, with gray hair and eyes that had seen more war than anyone should ever witness. "Commander Taemin, this is Fleet Admiral Jae-sung. I received your request for reinforcements. Earth has authorized the largest military deployment since the Proxima Wars. I am bringing 9 additional Worldbreaker ships and 400 support vessels. We will arrive in your system in approximately 6 hours. Hold position and prepare for combined operations." "And Taemin?" "And Taemin?" The Admiral smiled slightly. "Try not to win the war before I get there." The transmission ended, and the bridge crew erupted in cheers. Taemin felt relief wash over him, though he did not show it. Jae-sung had been his commanding officer during the Proxima Wars, the man who had taught him everything about being a Worldbreaker. If anyone could help them win against impossible odds, it was him. "Yuna, send a message to all human forces. Tell them help is coming. Tell them we just need to hold on a little longer." On the planet's surface, Ji-woo's marines were exhausted. They had been fighting for 3 days straight, and despite the stimulants their armor fed them, they were reaching their limits. But the news of incoming reinforcements gave them new strength. In a field hospital set up in the ruins of a Deltharian school, Hyun-woo worked without stopping. The medical bay on the Harbinger was full, so they had established multiple hospitals on the ground. Hyun-woo moved between beds, treating wounded Marines and Deltharian civilians. He even treated captured Krathian soldiers, despite protests from some of the Marines. "Why are you helping them?" a young Marine asked, watching as Hyun-woo set a Krathian's broken arm. "They would not do the same for us." "Ander." Hyun-woo finished wrapping the bandage and looked at the Marine. "That is exactly why I do it. Because we are better than them. We can be ruthless warriors and still show mercy to defeated enemies. That is what makes us human." A military police officer appeared at the entrance to the medical tent. "Dr. Hyun-woo, you are wanted for questioning. Commander Hae-won wants to court-martial you for treating enemy combatants." The medical tent went silent. Every Marine and doctor stopped what they were doing. Hyun-woo looked at the wounded Krathian he had just treated. Then, at the military policeman. "I will come after I finish with my patients. All of them." The policeman nodded and left. Hyun-woo continued working, knowing that he might face serious punishment for his actions, but unable to stop helping people who needed medical care. When Earth's reinforcement fleet arrived, it was a sight that would be talked about for generations. 9 massive Worldbreaker ships emerged from quantum space, followed by hundreds of smaller cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. It was 25% of Earth's entire military might, all committed to saving one alien world. Across the galaxy, other species watched the deployment with mixed feelings. Some were inspired by humanity's willingness to sacrifice so much for strangers. Others were terrified by how much military power Earth could bring to bear when it chose to fight. On Delthara Prime, the Deltharian Prime Minister Velzara stood on the balcony of her temporary headquarters and watched the human ships fill the sky above her world. She felt tears running down her blue cheeks. These strange, violent, wonderful creatures from Earth had crossed the stars to save her people, asking nothing in return. Yuna appeared beside her. The communication officer had been working with the Deltharian government for days now, helping coordinate between human forces and civilian populations. "Your people saved us," Velzara said quietly. "Why? We have nothing to offer you. We are not warriors. We cannot repay this debt." Yuna smiled. "We do not want payment. We came because you needed help, and no one else would give it. That is what humans do. It is who we are, but the cost." Velsara gestured at the ruined city around them. So many dead. So much destroyed. Was it worth it? That is a question we ask ourselves after every battle, Yuna admitted. We do not have easy answers. We just know that doing nothing while innocents suffer is worse than the cost of fighting. Before Velzara could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the city. The Krathian reinforcement fleet was here, and they were not interested in talking. 1,200 warships dropped out of quantum space and immediately began advancing on the human fleet. On the bridge of his new flagship, the EDF Retribution, Admiral Jae Sung studied the tactical display. He had fought in dozens of battles, but this would be one of the largest. His 12 Worldbreaker ships and their support vessels faced a force more than twice their size. "Analysis?" he asked his tactical officer. "They are advancing in a standard Krathian siege formation. They plan to overwhelm us with numbers and firepower. They are not using any fancy tactics because they do not think they need to." Jae-sung nodded. "Their mistake. Send a message to all ships. Execute Operation Broken Crown." Throughout the human fleet, crews scrambled to their battle stations. In the fighter bays, Sang-woo gathered his pilots for one more briefing. Many of the faces he had known were gone, replaced by fresh pilots from the reinforcement fleet. But they all had the same look in their eyes. Determination. "Our job is target designation," Sang-woo explained. "We paint the enemy ships with laser markers, and the drones do the rest. Stay fast, stay mobile, and do not be heroes. We have already lost too many good people." The pilots saluted and headed to their fighters. Sang-woo climbed into his own cockpit, but his hands were shaking. He had lost so many friends in the past few days. Every time a pilot died, he felt responsible. He was their commander. He was supposed to keep them safe. But in war, no one was ever truly safe. On the Harbinger, Taemin stood beside Jae-sung on the Retribution's bridge via holographic link. They watched as the Krathian fleet approached, confident in their numerical superiority. "Are you ready for this?" Jae-sung asked his former student. "I have been ready since we answered that distress call," Taemin replied. "The question is whether the galaxy is ready for what we are about to do." "They called us ruthless," Jae-sung said quietly. "They called us brutal. They called us monsters. But they forgot something important. We are also right. These Krathians prey on the weak. They conquer and enslave without mercy. Someone needs to stop them, and if we have to be monsters to do it, then that is what we will be." The Krathian fleet was in range now. Their commander sent one final transmission. "Humans, you will be the first species we exterminate completely. Your Earth will burn. Your colonies will be enslaved. You will be erased from history. V. Jae-sung's response was cold and calm. You are not the first to try. You will not be the last. But you will fail, just like all the others. And when this is over, it will be your empire that falls, not ours. He turned to his weapons officer. Activate Operation Broken Crown. Release the swarms. From every human ship, bay doors opened. What emerged looked like a cloud of metal insects, thousands upon thousands of them. These were autonomous combat drones, each one barely bigger than a person, but equipped with a microfusion warhead and advanced artificial intelligence. They could think, adapt, and hunt. The Krathian sensors detected them a moment later. The tactical officer on the Krathian flagship went pale. Sir, I am detecting 2.4 million individual targets. All of them are heading toward us. The Krathian commander stared at his screen in disbelief. That is impossible. No fleet carries that many drones. It must be some kind of sensor error. Well, but it was not an error. It was humanity, showing the galaxy what happened when you made them angry. The battle was like nothing anyone had ever seen. 2.4 million autonomous drones filled space between the human and Krathian fleets, each one moving with deadly purpose. The Krathian ships tried to shoot them down, their defensive weapons firing thousands of times per second. They destroyed many drones, but for every one they killed, 10 more took its place. On the Retribution's bridge, Admiral Jae Sung watched the tactical display with calm eyes. He had planned this operation for years, developed the technology, run the simulations, but this was the first time it had been used in actual combat on such a massive scale. The drones are adapting their attack patterns, reported his tactical officer. They are learning from each ship's defenses and adjusting their approach. That was the terrifying thing about humanity's drone swarms. They were not just weapons. They were artificial intelligences that could think, learn, and evolve their tactics in real time. Each drone shared information with all the others, creating a hive mind that became smarter and more efficient with every passing second. Sang-woo led his fighter squadrons through the chaos, marking priority targets with laser designators. When a fighter's laser touched a Krathian ship, the drones swarmed toward it like hungry predators. Hundreds of drones would impact the same ship within seconds, their microfusion warheads detonating in a chain reaction that tore through even the strongest shields. Target designated, Sang-woo called out as he marked a Krathian battlecruiser. Break and evade. His fighter pulled up hard as drones streaked past him. They hit the battlecruiser in waves, each explosion weakening its shields until finally the hull was breached. The drones poured inside, detonating throughout the ship's interior. The battlecruiser broke apart in a massive explosion. Across the battlefield, the same scene repeated hundreds of times. Krathian ships fell in dozens, then in scores. Their commander screamed orders, trying to regroup his fleet, but it was like trying to organize a defense against a swarm of intelligent bullets. On the Harbinger, Dong-wook monitored the drone swarm's performance. He had helped design these weapons, but even he was amazed by how effective they were, and terrified, because he knew what they represented. Humanity's willingness to create weapons that could think for themselves, that could kill without human oversight. Sir, the Krathian flagship is trying to retreat, Hae-won reported. Should we let them go? Tae-min thought for a moment. Letting them escape might seem merciful, but it would also allow them to regroup, to come back with more forces, to threaten other worlds. No. They chose this fight. Now they finish it. Mark the flagship for the Cascade Protocol. Hae-won hesitated for just a second. The Cascade Protocol had already killed hundreds of thousands of Krathians. Using it again would push the death toll into the millions. But orders were orders. Cascade Protocol activated. Firing. The quantum pulse reached the Krathian flagship and penetrated its shields. Deep in the ship's reactor, the chain reaction began. But this time, Dong-wook had modified the weapon. Instead of jumping to the nearest ship, it jumped to every ship that was transmitting on the same command frequency. In other words, every ship in the Krathian fleet. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. 1,200 Krathian warships exploded simultaneously, their reactors detonating from the inside out. The light from the explosions was so bright that it could be seen from the planet's surface. In the space of 10 seconds, the entire Krathian invasion force ceased to exist. On Delthara Prime, people stared up at the sky in awe and horror. The humans had not just won the battle. They had obliterated the enemy so completely that nothing remained but debris. In his field hospital, Hyun-woo watched the sky light up and felt sick to his stomach. He had spent days saving lives, stitching wounds, healing the broken, and in 10 seconds, humanity had killed more people than he could ever hope to save. He wondered if this was what it meant to be a worldbreaker. To save some by destroying others completely. The court-martial proceedings for Hyun-woo were held the next day. Commander Hae-won presented the charges: unauthorized medical treatment of enemy combatants, violation of military protocol, insubordination. The penalty could be discharge from service or even prison time. But before judgment could be passed, Tae-min entered the proceedings. Permission to speak on behalf of the accused. Hae-won looked surprised but nodded. Permission granted. Tae-min stood beside Hyun-woo. This man treated enemy soldiers because that is what doctors do. They heal people. We train our Marines to kill efficiently and without mercy. We train our doctors to save lives regardless of whose life it is. Dr. Hyun-woo was doing exactly what we trained him to do. If we punish him for that, then we are not warriors fighting for what is right. We are just killers pretending to have principles. The room was silent. Finally, Hae-won spoke. Charges dismissed. Dr. Hyun-woo, you are free to return to duty. Hae-won. 5 Lee. Hae-won. Later, Tae-min found Hyun-woo in the hospital tent. You were right to treat them, Tae-min said. We are ruthless, but we are not savages. There is a difference. Never forget that. The aftermath of the battle took weeks to process. 23,000 human soldiers and crew had died. 41,000 were wounded. 2 million Deltharian civilians had been killed during the occupation and the fighting. The destruction to Delthara Prime was enormous, with entire cities reduced to rubble. The Galactic Council condemned Earth's actions in the strongest possible terms. 17 species formally protested humanity's excessive use of force and disregard for the rules of civilized warfare. They called for Earth to be sanctioned, possibly even expelled from the galactic community. But 43 other species sent secret messages to Earth. They were smaller nations, weaker civilizations that lived in fear of being conquered by empires like the Krathian Dominion. Their messages all said the same thing. Thank you. Please help us too. Creeding 7. Yuna decided to stay on Delthara Prime as Earth's first ambassador to the Deltharian people. She had grown to love these peaceful, artistic people and wanted to help them rebuild. Velzara was grateful to have her, saying that Yuna was the bridge between two very different cultures. Ji-woo received Earth's highest military honor for her actions during the battle, but she announced her retirement from military service immediately afterward. She had seen enough war, killed enough enemies, lost enough friends. She wanted to find peace, though she was not sure peace was possible after everything she had done. Sang-woo was promoted to Wing Marshal, in charge of all fighter operations for the Worldbreaker Division. But he could not shake the survivors' guilt. So many of his pilots had died under his command. He saw their faces every night when he tried to sleep. Hyun-woo opened a joint human Deltharian medical academy, training doctors from both species to work together. He believed that healing was the best way to honor those who had died. 1 year after the battle, Tae-min stood before the Deltharian Memorial Wall. It listed every civilian who had died during the occupation and the liberation. 2 million names carved in stone. He read some of them, though he could not pronounce the Deltharian words correctly. Velsara found him there. You come here often, she observed. Why do you torture yourself with guilt? Because I should feel guilty, Taemin replied. We saved your people, but the cost was terrible. 2 million dead. Was it worth it? I do not know. I will probably never know. Let me tell you what I know, Velsara said. Before you came, we were dying. Our children were being taken as slaves. Our culture was being erased. In another week, the Deltharian species would have ceased to exist. You stopped that. Yes, many died. But billions lived because of what you did. That is worth something. Taemin nodded slowly. Why did you come? Really? She asked. Why risk everything for strangers? Because someone had to, Taemin said simply. Because we could. Because that is what it means to be human. Taemin, Earth's actions had consequences beyond Delthara Prime. The Krathian Dominion, having lost 2 entire fleets and its best warlords, began to fracture. 12 oppressed species within their empire saw what had happened and launched their own rebellions. Within 6 months, the Dominion collapsed completely. Humanity established the Free Species Coalition, a military alliance for civilizations threatened by larger empires. Earth provided protection, training, and weapons to species that wanted to defend themselves. It was not charity. It was humanity's way of ensuring that what had happened to the Deltharians would not happen again. The galaxy remained divided about Earth and its worldbreakers. Half saw them as saviors, protectors of the weak, champions of freedom. The other half saw them as dangerous militants who solved every problem with overwhelming violence. Both sides were right. 1 year after the Battle of Delthara, Taemin received a new distress signal. This one came from a species called the Ventari, who were being invaded by the Zoltan Empire. The Galactic Council had already refused to help. Other major powers had turned away. Taemin gathered his crew on the bridge of the Harbinger. Another species needs help. Another empire thinks it can do whatever it wants because no one will stop them. The council says we should stay out of it. What do you think? Haewon checked her tactical display. The Zoltan Empire has 800 warships. This will not be easy. Dongwook studied his engineering readouts. Our weapons systems are still not at full capacity from the last battle. We would be going in at 70% combat effectiveness. Yuna, joining the call from Delthara Prime, said, "The galaxy is watching. If we do this again, we will cement our reputation forever. We will be the people who answer distress calls when no one else will. That comes with responsibilities and dangers." Sang Woo spoke from the fighter bay. "My pilots are ready. We are always ready." Taemin looked at each of his officers, these people who had become his family through combat and sacrifice. "Shall we?" The answer came back from every station on the ship. From every crew member who heard the question. It was the same answer humanity had been giving since the dawn of time, when asked if they would help those in need. Always. The Harbinger's engines began to charge for quantum jump. Across the human fleet, ships prepared for another battle against impossible odds. They knew the costs. They understood the sacrifices. But they went anyway, because that was what Worldbreakers did. As the fleet jumped into quantum space, a message broadcast across every channel in the galaxy. It came from Earth itself, from the government that commanded these warriors, from the people who sent their sons and daughters to fight for strangers, to all species who cry out for help, to all civilizations threatened by those stronger than themselves, to all people who have lost hope. Remember this. When darkness falls and tyrants rise, when the strong prey on the weak and the galaxy turns away, there is one species that will answer your call. We are humanity. We are the Worldbreakers, and we are coming.